Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. Sable Merrick woke up to humiliation before her mind fully caught up to her body. Warm breath touched her neck, an arm locked around her waist, and the scent, earthy, smoky, alive, hit her so hard she forgot how to breathe. She wasn't in her bed. The sheets were darker, heavier. A man's chest was against her back, solid and unmistakably bare. A deep voice growled a single word in her ear, half sleep, half possession. Mate. Pain punched through her chest so sharp she almost cried out. This couldn't be real. Yesterday she was just an ordinary waitress at the Rusted Lantern Diner, counting tips, avoiding her mother's questions, and pretending her 25th birthday didn't matter. Now she was lying in a stranger's bed. No, not a stranger. She knew who he was. Everyone in Redwater Ridge knew. Dorian Cade, Alpha of Stormvale Pack. The most feared wolf for 50 miles. Dorian woke with a jolt, as if thrown from a dream into a fire. His wolf was already at the surface, snarling with a possessiveness he didn't expect, didn't understand, didn't even want. His first thought wasn't confusion. It was hunger. The second was shock, because he had never seen this woman before last night, and yet something ancient and buried deep inside him knew her. The scent was agonizingly clear, wild clover and rain. His wolf repeated the word again, louder this time, pressing against the inside of his skull. Mate. Dorian sat up carefully, loosening his grip around her waist. He saw her eyes open, wide, terrified, furious, and something primitive surged through him, something older than logic. He wanted to protect her. He wanted to claim her. But he didn't remember bringing her here. That was the problem. He remembered the bar, the storm, and then nothing. Sable pushed herself away so fast she nearly fell off the edge of the mattress. The room was dim, morning light leaking through torn blackout curtains. Her heart was beating like a trapped animal. "Don't touch me!" she snapped, voice shaking. She wasn't weak, but this was too much. Birthday hangovers were supposed to mean regret, not wolves calling you mate. She scanned the room for her clothes, cheeks burning, skin hot. Everything looked expensive and worn, heavy oak furniture, claw marks on wood floors, a cracked mirror, a scent of pine and smoke. She recognized it from whispered stories. Stormvale territory. She looked at him, dark hair messy, eyes a golden shade that didn't look human, muscles carved like someone who fought more than he slept. He looked dangerous, but the real danger was the feeling in her chest she couldn't explain. Dorian swung, his legs out of bed slowly, careful not to spook her. Instinct told him not to make sudden moves around a frightened mate. He didn't want to believe it. Fate bonds were rare, almost myth. But one look at her, and his wolf had already decided. "I didn't bring you here to hurt you," he said, voice low, steady. Sable flinched anyway. He could smell her fear, her disbelief, and something else. Anger. She didn't look like someone who wanted to be anyone's anything. She looked like someone who had spent years fighting to stay invisible. That made the wolf inside him restless. "Last night something happened," he said. "There was a rogue attack. I remember trying to get you out of harm's way, and then..." He stopped. Images flashed. Rain. Blood. Her eyes glowing silver for one impossible second. Sable grabbed a blanket and wrapped it around herself, shaking. Last night she heard howling in the woods behind the diner. Jory dared her to walk outside and prove she wasn't scared. She remembered stepping into the rain. She remembered seeing yellow eyes in the trees. And then... darkness. "I'm leaving," she said, even though her legs felt weak. Dorian stepped in front of the door before she reached it. Not aggressive, just present. Too present. "You can," he said quietly. but something marked you. I'm not letting you walk into town unprotected." His wolf pushed again, demanding the bond be sealed. Dorian shoved it down. Sable wasn't some prize. "If you're lying to me," she whispered, staring right into his unnatural eyes, "I'll make you regret it." The wolf inside him actually purred. For the first time in years, Dorian smiled. Not safe, not calm, but interested. And fate, watching from the shadows of Stormvale territory, smiled too. This was only the beginning. Sable didn't walk back into Redwater Ridge so much as flee, clutching her coat around her even though the late morning air was warm. Her mind replayed the word mate until it became unbearable noise. She pushed open the diner door harder than necessary, bell jangling. The rusted lantern smelled like burnt coffee, fried potatoes, and safety. Or at least it used to. Jory was wiping down the counter and froze when he saw her. "Where were you? Your mom's been calling everywhere." Sable sank into a booth before her knees gave out. She didn't tell him about waking up next to an alpha. She didn't mention how her heart felt like a fist squeezing from the inside. Instead, she said the smallest truth. Something strange happened. Jory sat down opposite her, eyes worried. He was safe, familiar, human. But when their shoulders brushed, Sable noticed something new. No spark, no rush. Nothing like that fire in her chest earlier. That terrified her most. Dorian stared at the empty space where she'd stood, fighting an urge to go after her immediately. He needed control. Alpha control. But his wolf kept pacing, pressing sharp thoughts into his mind. Bring mate back. Keep mate safe. He shoved a hand through his hair and walked to the cracked mirror across the room. Stormvale Pack had never fully recovered since Holden Cade died last winter. Their numbers shrank, territory pushed back by rogues, whispers of a curse spreading through the forest like fog. Dorian had convinced himself he would rule alone, bond to no one. Mateship was a myth to him, something older wolves told to feel less lonely. Now he'd smelled it, touched it. Fate wasn't a story. It was claws and lightning in his veins. He reached for his phone to text Bran, his beta, but stopped. No messages. Whoever attacked last night wasn't finished. He needed answers before another threat came for Sable. Sable's mother burst into the diner 30 minutes later, apron still tied around her, eyes wild with relief and anger tangled together. Eva Merrick hugged her so tight, Sable gasped. "I thought something happened," Eva whispered, voice cracking. "I woke up and you were gone." Sable opened her mouth to say she was fine, but then the silver memory flashed, those glowing eyes in the rain. She swallowed it. Eva's worry wasn't simple mother panic. It felt like fear of something very specific. Almost like she knew dangers Sable didn't. Tamsin Rowe slid into the booth suddenly, smooth as a blade. "Happy birthday, by the way," she said too sweetly, fingers tapping the table. Tamsin always smiled like she knew a secret and wanted Sable to ask. "Anything special happen?" Sable forced a laugh, lied straight through her teeth. "Nothing worth talking about." But her pulse jumped, and Tamsin noticed. They always did. Dorian called Bran to the cabin to go over last night's tracks. Bran knelt near the back door, fingers brushing the claw marks carved into wood. "Rogues don't mark territory," he muttered. "They just take." Dorian nodded grimly. The marks weren't random. They were warning signs. A single word was carved beneath the deeper scratches. Return. Dorian's jaw tightened. Rogues didn't leave messages. Someone intelligent was leading them. Bran stood slowly, expression worried. Whoever it is, they want something. Or someone. Dorian didn't answer at first. He thought of Sable's scent. New, unfamiliar, intoxicating. Rogue smelled it too. Fate bonds gave off energy, like a beacon. Dorian had to find out who she was, where she came from, and why Fate chose now. Keep it quiet. Dorian said finally. "No one in Stormvale talks about last night. Not until we know who's watching." When Sable finally got home that night, she found something strange waiting on the porch. A single white feather. Not from any local bird she recognized. Too perfect. Too clean. Eva froze when she saw it, color draining from her face. "Inside!" she whispered sharply, grabbing Sable's wrist. "Now!" Sable pulled away, confusion rising like tidewater. "It's just a feather." Ava looked at her like she was a child playing near fire. "No, it isn't." Eva slammed the door shut and locked it, every bolt sliding like a countdown. Sable stared at her mother. "What aren't you telling me?" Eva didn't answer immediately. She looked tired, older than her 40 years, eyes full of old storms. "Your father left because of you," Eva said quietly. "Because of what you might become." Sable's breath vanished. She stepped back. "What are you talking about?" Eva's voice shook. "I prayed it wouldn't happen. I prayed you'd be normal. But 25 is when the blood wakes up." Outside, somewhere deep in the trees, something howled. Sharp, hungry, close. Sable closed her eyes, and for the first time, she didn't just hear it. She felt it. Sable couldn't sleep. Every time she shut her eyes, she heard branches snapping outside, paws crunching through leaves. Midnight settled over Redwater Ridge like a heavy blanket, but her blood buzzed, restless and wrong. She sat on her bed, knees pulled to her chest, replaying her mother's words. 25 is when the blood wakes up. It sounded like a curse, like a prophecy. Sable looked at her reflection in the window glass, pale face, tangled hair. Ordinary. But when she listened carefully, she heard something impossible under her heartbeat. Another rhythm, deeper, like a second pulse hidden beneath the first. It scared her so badly she grabbed her phone, typing a message that she erased twice before finally sending. "I need answers." Now. She wasn't sure who she meant to text until she saw the contact name. Dorian. The fact that she had his number at all was another mystery she'd deal with later. Dorian was already awake, sitting at the cabin table with maps spread out, trying to trace rogue movements from the last 2 months. When his phone buzzed, he froze. Her name on screen sparked a surge of instinct so strong he gripped the wood edge to stay steady. He opened the message and read it twice. "Answers," he muttered. "Yeah, we both need those." Bran arrived seconds later, shoving the door open, breathless. "We found something at Ghost Pine Hill," he said. "Rogue tracks circling and scent marks." Dorian stood, pulse spiking. "Mine?" Bran shook his head slowly. "Hers." That was impossible. Sable had never set foot near Stormvale territory before last night. Unless her bloodline wasn't human at all. Dorian grabbed his jacket, wolf rising hot behind his ribs. Fate wasn't gentle. It was a force, and it was moving faster than he was prepared for. The next morning, Sable demanded explanations from Eva, but her mother kept deflecting, stirring tea she never drank. "Some secrets keep you alive," Eva whispered. Sable slammed her hands on the counter, voice shaking with frustration. "I'm tired of being protected from things I don't understand." Eva flinched, the spoon clattering. "Your father's family wasn't human," she said finally. "He left before the truth got you killed." Sable stared at her like the floor had dropped out from under her life. "Am I?" She couldn't say the word wolf. Eva shook her head, tears forming. "I don't know. Your blood is dormant. It may stay that way forever." But Sable wasn't convinced. Last night, something brushed through her thoughts. Something wild. She opened her phone. One new message from Dorian. "Meet me at the trail behind the diner." No one follows. Sable slipped her coat on. Answers were coming, whether she was ready or not. Dorian stood by the old oak at Briar Trail, eyes scanning the woods, every sense alert. When Sable appeared, hair wind-tangled, eyes storm-bright, he felt his wolf go still. Recognition deepened, not just attraction, but inevitability. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said. "Rogues are moving closer." Sable crossed her arms. "You said something marked me. Explain." Dorian hesitated. Truth was sharp. Once spoken, you couldn't take it back. "Rogues follow power," he said. "Mateship is rare. When it happens, energy leaks into the world. They smell it." Sable took a step back, shaking her head. "I'm not a wolf." Dorian's gaze softened, almost pity. "Blood doesn't care what you believe." Suddenly, a branch snapped nearby. Dorian grabbed Sable's wrist. "Don't run," he whispered. She didn't get a chance. A low growl rolled through the trees like thunder, and 3 shapes slipped into view, eyes glowing red. They weren't big wolves. They were lean, twisted, fur-patchy, mouths foaming. Rogues. Sable's pulse exploded. Dorian shoved her behind him, body shifting posture, a dangerous calm settling into his shoulders. "Stay behind me," he murmured, voice gone alpha sharp. The rogues spread out, circling. One lunged. Dorian's shift almost happened mid-movement, bones threatening to crack, skin burning, but he held it just long enough to slam the attacker into the dirt with a sickening snap. Bran burst through the trees seconds later, blade drawn, slicing at the second rogue. The third turned on Sable, growling, and something inside her snapped. A sound tore from her throat, not a scream, but a growl. Low, deep, wild. The rogue stopped dead, ears flat. Its gaze flicked to her eyes, widening in fear. Sable felt herself staring back, vision tinted silver. Then everything went black. The last thing she heard was Dorian shouting her name like it was something worth saving. Sable stood by the window, staring at the mist curling through the tall pines of Stormvale territory. Her hands were pressed flat against the cold glass, the fog outside blending with the fog in her mind. Dorian sat in the corner of the cabin, tense and alert, his jaw tight, eyes flicking toward every shadow, every shift in the forest. She could feel it, the way the air trembled, the way her own pulse throbbed in sync with some unseen rhythm in the woods. The events of the last night haunted her, not as memories, but as lingering sensations. The rogue lunging at her, the metallic taste of fear, the growl that tore from her throat without conscious thought. She hadn't just scared the creature. She had felt power, raw, ancient hers, that didn't belong entirely to her. Dorian's voice broke through her thoughts, low and steady. "You can't fight what you don't understand. Not yet." Sable turned sharply, defiance burning in her eyes. "Then teach me," she whispered, "because I'm not going to run." Dorian studied her carefully, noticing the way her shoulders stiffened, the way her eyes flared silver when anger and fear collided. The Alpha's wolf stirred beneath his skin, sensing what she could not yet comprehend. Mateship was rare, dangerous, and demanding, and the bond was already forming. His instinct urged him to claim, to protect, to pull her close, but he held back, forcing reason over primal drive. "You don't know what you're asking," he said, voice heavy. "Once this bond is real, you can't walk away. Not from me, not from the pack, not from what's coming." Sable's gaze didn't waver. If anything, her determination sharpened like a blade. She had grown up hidden, underestimated, taught to shrink. Now, standing in the dim light of his cabin, she felt the first stirrings of her true self. Wild, untamed, and unwilling to hide any longer. Eva Merrick's warnings echoed in Sable's mind as she paced the cabin floor. The white feather, the cryptic words, the fear in her mother's eyes. All of it pointed to something greater than herself, something that had been waiting for her awakening. She glanced at Dorian again, seeing not just the Alpha of Stormvale Pack, but a man who had faced blood and death and somehow survived it all. His presence both intimidated and intrigued her, like standing at the edge of a cliff with the wind tugging at your coat, "Why me?" she asked, voice barely more than a whisper. "Why now?" Dorian's gaze softened, uncharacteristically uncertain. "Because fate chose you," he said quietly. "Because your blood calls to forces you haven't even begun to understand. And because the rogues are moving faster than I anticipated." The room seemed to shrink around them, the walls pressing closer as if the cabin itself waited for the inevitable confrontation. Outside, the wind howled against the cabin walls, carrying scents that made Sable shiver. Pine, rain, smoke, and something metallic. Danger. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, restless and impatient, echoing Dorian's tension. He moved closer, careful not to touch her without consent, yet every motion radiated authority. "You need to train," he said. "Now, before they come again." Sable bristled, instinctively resisting, yet she felt the truth in his words settle like iron in her chest. Her mother had kept her hidden for 25 years, but the world outside had never been gentle, and now it was demanding she fight. Dorian watched her, eyes narrowing, sensing the awakening of power that was not yet fully hers, but unmistakably hers to claim. "You will learn control," he said, "and you will survive, or we both die trying." The final warning came abruptly. A branch snapped outside, louder than the wind should allow. Both Sable and Dorian froze. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Dorian's muscles tensed, every sense alert. His wolf pressed hard against his mind, insistent, growling, demanding action. Sable felt it too, a pulse of intent in the woods, like eyes watching from everywhere and nowhere. She took a shaky step back. "They're here," she whispered. Dorian's expression hardened, protective instinct surging. "Not yet, but soon," he said. He crossed the room, drawing a knife from his belt, its edge glinting in the dim light. Sable's own pulse raced, fear and adrenaline mingling, wolf and human intertwined. She realized then that fate wasn't just calling her, it was hunting her, and there was no place to hide. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the cabin in a white flash, and in that instant Sable understood the terrifying truth. Everything was about to change, and she had no choice but to step into a world she didn't fully understand, guided by the alpha who had claimed her as mate before she even knew what it meant. The forest beyond Stormvale territory was alive with whispers of movement, each sound amplified in Sable's ears, as if the trees themselves were conspiring against her. Dorian led her along a narrow trail, muscles coiled beneath his clothes, eyes scanning every shadow. Her pulse was a drum in her chest, adrenaline mingling with something more primal, a deep, electric sense of awakening. She tried to focus on each step, but her wolf stirred, restless and curious, nudging at her awareness, demanding to be acknowledged. She had never felt such energy coursing through her, wild and untamed, yet strangely familiar. "You have to learn control," Dorian said, his voice low, carrying across the misted clearing. "Your wolf responds faster than your human instincts. If you panic, you could hurt yourself, or me." Sable swallowed hard. Control. The word felt heavier than any burden she had ever carried. Yet she nodded, gripping her coat tighter as she stepped further into the woods. Dorian watched her carefully, noticing every subtle flicker of fear and curiosity in her movements. He could feel her scent rising in waves, mingling with the rain-soaked pine and earth. It was intoxicating, disorienting, and impossible to ignore. His wolf growled softly, frustrated at being restrained, impatient for her to accept what was already inevitable. "Close your eyes," he instructed, stopping at a fallen tree whose moss-covered trunk stretched like a bridge across the small creek. "Feel the ground beneath your feet. Hear the forest. Let your wolf sense the air." Sable did as he asked, trembling slightly, trying to quell the panic clawing at her chest. Her senses sharpened instantly. The soft drip of water, the scrape of bark as a squirrel darted, the distant rustle of something heavier moving in the shadows. Her pulse shifted. She realized she was no longer just Sable Merrick. She was something older, deeper, alive in a way she had never known. The training was brutal, more than Sable anticipated. Dorian guided her through exercises that forced her to acknowledge her wolf without surrendering to it. She had to run through the woods, senses heightened while he shadowed her, stopping her from attacking phantom threats. Each attempt left her muscles trembling, sweat soaking her hair, yet she felt a surge of pride she had never experienced before. The bond between them grew with every heartbeat, every shared glance, every unspoken connection. Dorian's dual nature, alpha and wolf, brushed against hers in subtle ways, nudging, testing, protecting. He was patient but demanding, and though she resented him at first, she began to understand the necessity. This was survival, not comfort. And the moment she acknowledged it, her wolf roared inside her. A low, vibrating sound that echoed off the trees and made the forest shiver in response. Suddenly, a howl sliced through the air, jagged, painful, distant, yet close enough to send a chill down their spines. Dorian froze instantly, every muscle tensing, ears swiveling. Sable's eyes widened as instinct drew her forward, wolf and human converging. "Don't!" Dorian barked, but it was too late. Her senses flared uncontrollably. She could track the sound, feel the predator's intent, smell the iron tang of blood in the air. Dorian grabbed her arm, steadying her, grounding her, though she resisted slightly, desperate to act. The rogue pack's scent was unmistakable, deliberate, menacing, seeking her. Dorian's golden gaze softened, almost imperceptibly, as he whispered, "You're not alone. Not now. Not ever." That simple assurance, in the midst of terror, ignited something inside her. Trust, fear, defiance, and longing all tangled together. She realized she was beginning to care for him in ways she could not yet name, and it terrified her more than the howls outside. By midday, the lessons had pushed them both to exhaustion. Sable collapsed against a moss-covered rock, gasping for breath, her chest heaving, hair plastered to her face. Dorian knelt beside her, silently observing, letting her wolf recover. "You're improving," he said finally, voice low but approving. "Faster than I expected." Sable gave a small, defiant smile, still wary, still furious at the intensity of the day, but also curious about the connection binding them. The forest seemed to exhale around them, shadows softening as if acknowledging the bond forming. Yet Dorian remained vigilant. He had tracked too many rogue attacks, seen too many mates stolen or killed. The danger was real and imminent. He could not allow her to underestimate it. "Tonight," he said, rising and offering a hand, "we go deeper. To the hollow ridge. That's where your real test begins." Sable took his hand, feeling strength, heat, and resolve. Together they stepped forward into the mist, the forest closing behind them, carrying the promise of awakening, confrontation, and the beginning of a bond that would change everything. The hollow ridge rose before them like a wall of shadows, jagged rocks slick with rain, mist curling around each crag as if guarding secrets. Sable's legs ached from the morning's training, muscles trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline, but she refused to look away. Every instinct screamed that the danger here would be different. Older, sharper, less forgiving. Dorian walked beside her, senses heightened, ears flicking toward every whisper of wind. His wolf pressed at him, restless, alerting him to the faintest disturbance in the mist. He didn't speak, letting Sable take in the ridge at her own pace, yet every flicker of movement, every subtle change in the fog was recorded in his mind. He could smell her uncertainty, the sharp metallic tang of fear mixed with something deeper, something thrilling, her blood reacting, alive and unrestrained. He clenched his jaw. This was more than a test. This was a hunt, and they were both prey and predator. Sable's wolf stirred restlessly, reacting before her human mind could catch up. She felt the pull of the ridge, The way it hummed under her feet, the invisible weight of something watching. "I can feel them," she whispered, voice low, almost reverent. Dorian turned his gaze to her, golden eyes narrowing. "Good. That means your bond is strengthening," he said. "But remember, sensing is one thing. Control is another. Let your wolf guide you, not rule you." She nodded, trying to steady her breathing, feeling the rhythm of her heartbeat sync with the rise and fall of the mist. Every step felt charged, alive. A shadow flickered across the fog, too large, too deliberate to be a trick of the light. Sable froze. Her wolf flared, claws extending under her nails, ears straining toward the sound. Dorian's hand found her wrist, grounding her, anchoring her fear. "Not yet," he murmured. "Wait for my signal." The rogue pack emerged from the mist with a precision that sent a shiver through Sable. Their movements were fluid, practiced, predatory, eyes glinting red in the dim light. Dorian shifted his stance, muscles taut beneath his shirt, body coiled to strike. "Stay behind me," he warned, voice steady but low, carrying authority. Sable's wolf bristled, itching to leap into the fray, but she obeyed, breathing through the fear and letting him take point. The rogues stopped short of them, sniffing the air, assessing, aware of power that wasn't theirs. One of them growled, a guttural, sick sound that vibrated through the stone beneath Sable's boots. She felt a surge of anger, primal and protective, a heat rising from her chest that made her entire body tingle. Dorian sensed it too, his wolf growling in approval and caution at once. Without warning, the largest rogue lunged, teeth bared, claws glinting. Dorian was faster, intercepting, movement precise, controlled, deadly. The rogue hit him with bone-cracking force, but he twisted, slammed his elbow into its side, and threw it off. Sable felt the wolf inside her snap to attention, eyes glowing silver as she lunged instinctively, knocking another rogue to the ground. Her human mind screamed for control, but the wolf inside demanded action. Dorian's eyes widened, just slightly, pride, surprise, and fear all in one. She could feel the surge of energy, the bond between them strengthening as her instincts intertwined with his guidance. This was what he had been preparing her for. Not just survival, but recognition of the strength she carried and the inevitability of their connection. When the fight ended, the rogues retreating into the mist, Sable and Dorian stood side by side, bodies trembling, sweat and rain slicking their hair to their skin. The forest exhaled, shadows retreating, but the tension remained, thick and palpable. Dorian glanced at her, expression softened but still alert. "You did well," he said. "Better than I expected." Sable's chest heaved, still tasting blood, adrenaline, and raw power. I didn't know I could." Her voice faltered. Dorian reached out, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. "You're awakening," he said. "Your wolf is strong, and we both need it. The rogues will be back, and next time, they won't be alone." She nodded, fear and excitement mingling. Somewhere deep in the mist, lightning flashed, and for a brief moment the ridge seemed alive with unseen eyes. Fate had marked her. The bond had deepened, and the hunt was only beginning. The storm broke fully that evening, rain hammering the forest like a drum, lightning cutting jagged paths through the black sky. Sable pressed herself against the cabin wall, soaked through, shivering not from cold, but anticipation. Her wolf pulsed in her veins, restless, frustrated, demanding action. Dorian moved beside her silently, aura tense, eyes scanning every shadow beyond the shelter. He could smell her fear, taste her adrenaline, and beneath it a stubborn defiance he had yet to tame. The rogue attacks had been scouts, warnings, and he knew the main threat would come tonight. He clenched his fists, jaw tight. "Stay close," he said, voice barely above the rain. Sable nodded, gripping the hem of her soaked coat. Her human mind screamed caution, but her wolf howled for confrontation, for survival, for blood. It was a battle between instincts, and both sides were equally urgent, equally insistent. Hours passed with tension so thick it felt like it could suffocate. Every sound, snapping branches, distant howl, even the drip of water from the cabin roof, sent Sable's heart racing. Dorian remained a pillar of control, a silent guardian, but she could sense his mind calculating, predicting, preparing. He had told her before, control was everything, but now she understood what he meant. Her wolf was powerful, but without him, without guidance, it could destroy everything, or get her killed. Sable's hand brushed his sleeve unconsciously, and she felt a jolt of heat, a closeness she didn't yet name. Dorian didn't pull away. He merely adjusted his stance, eyes flicking toward the forest, warning without words. The connection between them was taut, unspoken, electric, the beginnings of a bond neither fully understood yet. Then the attack came, sudden and brutal. The rogues poured from the mist more than before, eyes glowing red, teeth bared, claws slicing through wet earth. Dorian shifted instantly, muscles taut, wolf pressing him to strike. Sable's wolf responded immediately, lunging forward with precision, fury, and raw power. Their movements synced almost instinctively. She was learning him. He was guiding her, and together they formed a wall of ferocity the rogues hadn't anticipated. One rogue tried to circle behind them, but Dorian intercepted it with a bone-crunching blow while Sable's claws tore through another's flank. Rain soaked their hair and clothes, but neither felt the cold. Adrenaline and energy blazed, a storm inside them as intense as the one raging outside. In the midst of chaos, Sable glimpsed one rogue who was different, larger, black fur matted, eyes like ice. Its movements were intelligent, deliberate, and Dorian tensed visibly. "Reagan," he muttered, and the name struck Sable like a blade. The rogue's gaze locked onto her, unflinching, aware of the energy radiating from her blood. Her wolf growled, reacting to the predator, and her human mind froze in simultaneous terror and clarity. Dorian's hand found hers, grounding her again. "Do not fight him alone," he warned. She nodded, and together they faced the rogue, fury and instinct entwined. The fight was a blur of motion, claws, teeth, and silver light from her eyes cutting through the darkness. Every strike she made was instinct, every dodge a lesson learned from him. When the battle ended, the rogues retreating, Sable and Dorian stood soaked and trembling, yet alive. The rain eased, leaving a strange stillness over the forest. Sable's heart pounded in her chest, wolf and human entwined, exhilaration and fear mixing until they were inseparable. Dorian's gaze softened, not with relief, but with an unspoken acknowledgement of what had changed. "You did more than survive," he said quietly, brushing rain from her cheek. "You embraced it, both of you." Sable's chest heaved, her breath trembled, and for the first time, she felt the bond's full weight. Frightening, powerful, inevitable. Lightning flashed once more, illuminating the trees, and she realized with clarity that nothing could undo what had begun tonight. She was his mate, the Alpha's chosen, and the rogues, whoever they truly were far from done hunting. But in that moment, standing with Dorian, she knew she could face whatever came next. The forest was eerily quiet the morning after the attack, as if it too were holding its breath. Sable's muscles ached, her body humming with residual energy, but her wolf was restless, pacing beneath her skin like a caged flame. Dorian had her follow him to a hidden clearing, far from the main trail, where he intended to teach her more than just survival. He would teach her control, instinct, and the connection between their wolves. Mist hovered above the ground, curling around the roots of ancient trees, and every sound seemed amplified, each snapping twig echoing like a gunshot. Sable's heart pounded, equal parts fear, excitement, and something else she couldn't yet name. Dorian's presence anchored her. His wolf pressed against her instincts, a constant reminder that she was not alone. "Today," he said, voice low but steady, "we push further. You will face your fears, and you will learn to command your wolf without losing yourself." Sable nodded, jaw tight, trying to remember the control techniques he had drilled into her since the morning. Their first exercise involved tracking, not prey, not rogues, but energy. Dorian had arranged small markers infused with scents meant to trigger her wolf's awareness. She moved slowly, letting her senses expand, feeling the vibrations of the forest, the subtle pull of unseen currents, the rhythm of her own pulse aligning with the land. Her wolf thrummed beneath her skin, eager and impatient. Dorian watched silently, every motion precise, his golden eyes never leaving her. When she faltered, instinct rising too fast, he touched her arm, grounding her, whispering a command she obeyed without question. Fear and adrenaline mingled as she realized the depth of her power, how it could respond before thought, how it could protect or destroy. The bond between them grew stronger, each movement, each touch, each breath reinforcing the invisible thread tying them together. By midday, the fog thickened, and Sable sensed something else moving in the distance. Not rogues, something older, darker, deliberate. Dorian tensed instantly, body coiling, wolf pressing him toward the threat. "They're close," he whispered, eyes scanning every shadow. Her wolf stirred violently, reacting before her human mind could process. Sable's pulse skyrocketed as a shape emerged from the mist, tall, hulking, fur-matted, eyes glinting like shards of obsidian. Reagan Thorne. The rogue alpha. Dorian stepped in front of her instinctively, protective, dangerous, unyielding. His presence was both shield and challenge, and Sable realized the truth. She was no longer just a girl being protected. She was a mate, bonded, vital to his strength. Her wolf surged forward, but Dorian stopped her with a hand on her chest, calm, but firm. "Together," he said. "We face him together." The confrontation was a blur of motion, teeth, claws, and instincts. Reagan lunged with unnatural speed, forcing both Sable and Dorian to move as one. Her wolf flared, silver eyes glowing, claws tearing at the rogue's defenses. Dorian struck with precise force, matching Reagan, blow for blow. The rhythm of combat melded them, human and wolf, mate and alpha, instinct and strategy fused into a single unstoppable force. Sable felt exhilaration, fear, and clarity all at once. Regan's snarls cut through the rain, voice like gravel over stone, but each strike Sable made was purposeful, controlled, guided by Dorian's presence and her own awakening power. This was more than survival. This was claiming her strength, acknowledging her bond, realizing her role in the pack, and understanding the danger of the world waiting beyond the mist. When the battle ended, Reagan retreating with a final snarl, Sable collapsed against Dorian, soaked, trembling, heart racing with both fear and exhilaration. He held her close, wolf and human intertwined, breathing together in the quiet that fell over the clearing. "You've done well," Dorian murmured, brushing wet hair from her face. Sable shivered, adrenaline still pulsing, and realized for the first time that the bond wasn't just physical or instinctual. It was emotional, deep, undeniable, and terrifying in its intensity. Lightning split the sky in the distance, illuminating their soaked forms and the mist curling around ancient trees. Fate had marked her, Reagan had noticed, and the rogues would not give up easily. Yet Sable, standing in Dorian's embrace, felt a surge of certainty she had never known. She was no longer prey, she was no longer hidden, and together they were unstoppable. Night fell like a dark curtain over Stormvale, the wind whipping through the pines, carrying the scent of rain and danger. Sable crouched behind a jagged boulder, heart hammering, wolf roaring beneath her skin, senses alive with every shift in the shadows. Dorian knelt beside her, muscles taut, eyes scanning the forest, ears twitching to catch even the faintest movement. The rogue pack had returned, more numerous than before, led by Regan Thorne, whose presence radiated malice and power. The air thrummed with tension, a charged current that made the hairs on Sable's arms stand on end. She tried to steady herself, inhaling slowly, grounding her human mind while letting her wolf sense every detail. Dorian's hand brushed hers, barely touching, yet enough to anchor her. "This is it," he murmured, voice low, golden eyes glinting with determination. "Tonight, we fight or die. Together." Sable nodded, fear and exhilaration colliding in her chest. She knew instinctively that nothing could prepare her for what was coming. The first wave hit suddenly, shadows breaking through the mist like jagged knives. Dorian surged forward, claws flashing, striking with precision, fangs bared, while Sable followed instinctively, wolf and human synchronized in rhythm. The battle was brutal and relentless. Rain-soaked earth turned to mud beneath their feet, blood and water mixing into a metallic scent that made her stomach churn and her senses sharpen. Regan Thorne emerged from the fog, massive, powerful. Eyes locked on Sable, intent clear. The air between them pulsed, a magnetic pull that neither could resist, wolf instincts screaming recognition, mate energy flaring uncontrollably. Sable lunged, wolf and human working as one, striking, dodging, surviving. And in that moment she realized the depth of her own strength, and the undeniable bond that tethered her to Dorian. Regan circled them, calculating, relentless, striking at precise moments to force mistakes. Sable felt the wolf surge inside her, commanding reflexes she hadn't yet mastered, and Dorian's guidance tempered it, a counterbalance that saved her from fatal errors. Every strike, every dodge, every coordinated movement deepened their connection, not just as mates, but as partners in a fight that could end them both. Her wolf roared in triumph and frustration simultaneously, urging more, faster, fiercer. Dorian caught her eye, reading her readiness, signaling her to hold, to wait, to conserve. Their synchronization became a dance, fluid and terrifying, wolf and human instincts meshing perfectly. Sable's heart pounded, body shaking with exertion, yet she felt clarity. The kind that only comes when life and death converge into a single, undeniable purpose. Then Regan made his mistake. Overconfidence, a slight lapse in rhythm, and Sable's wolf surged. She leapt, claws striking home, silver eyes flashing, fangs snapping, energy coursing through her in waves of pure power. Dorian lunged at the same moment, teeth sinking into the rogue alpha's shoulder, claws raking. The combined force of their bond, wolf and human, tore through Regan's defense. He screamed, staggered, and in that instant Sable felt a surge of triumph she had never imagined possible. The remaining rogues faltered, confusion rippling through them, fear dawning as they witnessed the mate bond's strength. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the scene in stark white flashes, revealing Dorian and Sable standing together, unyielding, unstoppable. When the last rogue fled into the darkness, silence fell over the ridge. Rain soaked them through, sweat and blood mingling, breaths ragged, hearts pounding in sync. Sable sank to her knees, wolf and human trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. Dorian knelt beside her, brushing wet hair from her face, eyes soft but burning with unspoken emotion. "You were incredible," he said quietly. "Both of you." Sable looked at him, seeing not just the alpha, but the man who had guided her, challenged her, and fought beside her. Her wolf purred in satisfaction, merging with the human recognition of triumph. She realized fully then that this bond, raw, terrifying, unshakable, was more than instinct or survival. It was connection, love, and fate intertwined. And as the storm broke overhead, lightning reflecting in their silver and gold eyes, she understood one undeniable truth. Together, nothing could defeat them, and nothing would ever be the same again. Dawn broke over Stormvale, painting the forest in shades of gold and silver. The remnants of the storm glistened on leaves and stones, dew mingling with the blood and sweat from the previous night. Sable stretched, muscles aching but alive in a way she had never known, wolf and human perfectly in tune. Dorian stood beside her, tall and steady, eyes scanning the forest, golden gaze softening as he finally allowed himself to exhale. The rogue pack was gone. Their threat diminished, their leader defeated. Yet the forest still hummed with residual tension, a reminder that survival required vigilance. Sable felt her wolf shift, calm but alert, and a new awareness settled into her bones. She was no longer the girl hiding in shadows. She was a warrior, a mate, a protector, and the Alpha's bond anchored her strength. They walked through the forest in silence, each step measured, the air carrying a sense of peace that had been absent for far too long. Dorian's hand brushed hers occasionally, small gestures that spoke volumes. Words were unnecessary. The bond between them conveyed trust, connection, and shared triumph. Sable felt her heart swell with an emotion that mingled relief, love, and awe. The humans in her past had underestimated her, but here, among the wolves and the wild, she had found her place. Her senses were sharp, attuned to the rhythms of the forest, aware of every subtle shift in the wind. The Alpha beside her had not just survived, he had guided her to embrace herself, to claim her power, and to understand the magnitude of what it meant to be chosen. They reached a clearing where the first sunlight caught the frost still clinging to the grass, glimmering like shattered crystal. Dorian stopped and faced her, expression unreadable, yet tender. "You've proven yourself," he said, voice low, resonant, carrying the weight of both human and wolf. "Not just in battle, but in control, in courage, in bond." Sable's chest tightened, tears threatening, a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and joy. She realized that this moment, standing in the calm after chaos, sunlight catching the mist around them, marked the end of fear and the beginning of something enduring. Her wolf purred within her, acknowledging Dorian, acknowledging the bond that had solidified in the crucible of battle. Together they were stronger, unbreakable, ready to face whatever the future held. A soft breeze stirred, carrying the scent of pine, wet earth, and something older, wiser. The forest itself seemed to breathe approval. Sable looked at Dorian, seeing not just alpha and protector, but partner, mate, and equal. Their eyes met, gold and silver interlocking, understanding passing silently between them. The rogue threat had been vanquished, yet it was more than survival that they had gained. They had claimed trust, love, and unity. Her hand found his, fingers intertwining naturally, wolf and human instincts merging in harmony with human emotion. Lightning flashed in the distance, harmless now, a reminder of storms past and the calm they had earned. As the morning deepened, Sable felt a peace she had never known, a balance between wolf and human, fear and strength, independence and partnership. Dorian brushed rain from her hair and held her close, both of them breathing in sync, hearts pounding together. The forest echoed with life, a silent acknowledgement of their triumph, their bond, and their claim on each other's fates. For the first time, Sable understood that being chosen did not mean losing herself. It meant embracing all that she was, all she could become with the Alpha beside her. And as the sun climbed higher, casting long golden rays through the trees, Sable smiled, wolf and human content, knowing that no matter what came next, they would face it together. Unshakable, bound by love, and unstoppable. Before we wrap up, don't forget to drop a comment below with your thoughts. Did you feel Sable and Dorian's bond? Were you on the edge of your seat during the rogue attacks? I want to know which scene made your heart race the most. If you loved the story, hit that like button. It really helps me know you want more thrilling, emotional werewolf romances. And subscribe with the notification bell on so you never miss the next adventure, the next twist, or the next romance that will pull you right into the story. Share this video with friends who love suspense, romance, and supernatural worlds. Let them join the hunt, the bond, and the adventure with Sable and Dorian. Remember, the story might end here, but the wolves, the magic, and the romance will always be waiting for you.